Have you ever felt that someone was manipulating you, but only realized too late, perhaps in a relationship, at work, or even in a casual conversation? Manipulators are everywhere, and the worst is that many do not even realize that they are being influenced until it is too late. But what if there was a way to shield against it? Stoicism, an ancient philosophy practiced by great leaders such as Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, teaches principles that can make your mind resistant to any attempt at manipulation. Not only does it help you identify manipulative tactics, but also to respond wisely without falling into emotional traps. In this video, you will learn 11 Stoic strategies that will help you maintain control of your mind, avoid being manipulated, and making decisions rationally and balanced. These techniques are applicable in any situation of your life, at work, relationships, or even everyday negotiations. So if you want to become mentally strong and independent, it already leaves the like and subscribes to the channel. Now let's understand how Stoic people can teach us how to resist manipulation and strengthen our mindset. Manipulation has always been present in society, whether in personal relationships, the professional environment, or even in the media. There are people who try to influence others to serve their own interests. And what makes someone vulnerable to these tactics? Uncontrolled emotions, lack of mental clarity, and the tendency to react impulsively. Stoics had understood this problem for over 2,000 years. For them, the key to true freedom was the mastery of one's mind. Epictetus, one of the great masters of Stoicism, said, "If anyone tries to control you, it is because you realize that you do not control yourself yet." This means that manipulators only have power over those who do not know their own emotional weaknesses. Stoicism teaches us to strengthen the mind through 3 fundamental pillars. 1. Emotional self-control, not to impulsively react to manipulative triggers. 2. Rational thinking, to identify attempts to influence and question them. 3. Psychological independence, not to depend on the approval or opinion of others. When you develop these principles, it becomes difficult to manipulate. You come to see situations clearly and avoid falling into emotional games. Best of all, you don't have to get into conflicts or confrontations to resist manipulation. Just know how to position yourself rationally and balanced. Now that we understand the basis of Stoicism against manipulation, let's go straight to the 11 strategies that will help you protect yourself in everyday life. Step 1. Control your emotions. A manipulator's first weapon is his emotion. Fear, anger, guilt, and excessive excitement are powerful tools to influence your decisions. If someone controls what you feel, it also controls what you do. Stoics knew this and emphasized the importance of emotional self-control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are disturbed by something external, the pain does not come from the thing itself, but from your interpretation of it." In other words, it is not manipulation that affects you, but its reaction to it. Imagine a boss who uses subtle threats to generate fear and force you to accept unfair demands. If you react impulsively, it has control over you. But it remains calm and responds rationally. Manipulation loses effect. The first step in protecting yourself from manipulation is not allowing your emotions to be controlled by external factors. Learn to observe your feelings without being dominated by them. Now let's go to the second step, the importance of not reacting immediately. Step 2. Do not react immediately. Manipulators love hurry. They know that when you act without thinking, your emotions speak louder than reason. One of the biggest mistakes you can make when dealing with attempts to manipulate is to react impulsively. Stoics practice the strategic break, that is, the habit of reflecting before responding. Seneca said, "Hurrying is proper to weakness. A strong man waits for the right moment." When you allow yourself a time to analyze the situation, dramatically reduces the chances of being influenced. Imagine that a co-worker makes a provocative comment to test his limits. If you react on time, you may fall exactly to the trap he planned, but it takes a deep breath and answers calmly, or even responds, you keep control of the situation. By adopting this practice, you prevent others from saying your actions. Now, let's go to the third step, to question the intentions behind people's words and attitudes. Step 3. Ask the other's intentions. Every manipulation has a hidden purpose. Those who try to influence you always have something to win. The problem is that the real intention is often not openly declared. This is why Stoics teach us to be skeptical and to question everything before accepting any influence. Epictetus warned, first learn to distinguish and then judge. That is, before you trust what someone says, ask yourself, what does this person really want? A common example is when someone praises you excessively before making a request. If a co-worker says, you're always as helpful, no one does it as well as you may be preparing the terrain to throw an unwanted task about you. Whenever someone tries to influence you, stop and reflect. Is there a hidden interest here? This simple analysis can prevent you from falling into traps. Now, let's go to the fourth step. Focus on what you can control. Step 4. Focus on what you can control. Manipulators want you to worry about what they control. They use uncertainty, doubt, and fear to make you feel helpless. But the Stoic teach that the key to mental freedom is to focus only on what is within their reach. Epictetus said, some things depend on us, some not. If you spend energy trying to change what is outside your control, it becomes vulnerable. The manipulator perceives your anxiety and uses it against you. For example, imagine a boss who implies that your promotion depends on mysterious factors, leaving you insecure. If you fall into this, you will be anxious and easier to manipulate, but focus only on what you can control, your performance and professionalism. You take up power. Always ask, is this under my control? If the answer is no, leave it aside. Now, let's go to the fifth step, not get carried away by excessive compliments. Step 5. Don't get carried away by excessive compliments. Compliments may seem harmless, but when used strategically, they are a powerful tool of manipulation. People who want to influence you can inflate your ego to make you more receptive to your demands. Stoics warn us against this trap. Marcus Aurelius wrote, don't let your happiness depend on the opinion of others. If you get used to seeking external validation, anyone can control you just distributing compliments at the right time. Imagine a salesman who, before offering an expensive product, says, you look like a very smart person, always makes the best decisions. This phrase may make you want to prove that it is right, making it harder to say no. The Stoic solution: accept compliments with indifference. Thanks politely, but don't let this influence your decisions. Now, let's go to the sixth step. Learn to say no without guilt. Step 6. Learn to say no without guilt. Many people give way to manipulation because they have difficulty saying no. Whether for fear of displeasing, looking rude, or generating conflicts, they end up accepting situations they do not want. But Stoic teach you owe nothing to anyone but your own integrity. Seneca said, nothing is more valuable than your time. Don't waste on what is not worth it. Arthur, when you learn to say no firmly, without having to justify yourself too much, it becomes much harder to manipulate. Imagine a friend who always asks favors but never returns. He uses his guilt and desire to be seen as a good person to explore you. And a Stoic would simply answer, I can't today. No drama, no excuses. Remember, a short and direct no is always stronger than a long justification. Now let's go to the seventh step. Avoid justifying it too much. Step 7. Avoid justifying yourself. Manipulators love it when you feel the need to explain yourself. The more you justify yourself, the more you give them to argue against you and make you give in. Stoics knew that excessive explanations are a sign of insecurity. Epictetus said, anyone seeking to please everyone becomes a slave to everyone. When you justify yourself, you give the message that you need the approval of others. This makes you an easy target for manipulation. For example, If someone asks you for a favor and you respond with a long explanation of why you can't help, the manipulator can counteract, explore your guilt, and change your mind. Now, if you simply say, "I can't right now," without going into details, avoid opening pressure gaps. Practice the art of short and direct response. The less explanations you give, the less control others will have about your decisions. Now, let's go to the 8th step, detect emotional games. Step 8, detect emotional games. Manipulators not only use words, but also emotions to control you. They can make you feel afraid, guilt, penalty, or obligation to act as you want. Stoics teach that to be free, you need to recognize these tactics and not fall into them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If anyone tries to affect you emotionally, remember, the problem is in it, not you." This means that you should not accept emotions imposed by third parties. A classic example is when someone says, "After all I did for you, this is how it treats me." The goal is to make you feel guilt and give in. A Stoic, instead of reacting emotionally, simply recognizes the game and maintains its position. Whenever someone tries to manipulate your emotions, stop and ask yourself, am I making this decision by your own choice or by emotional influence? This simple filter can protect you from many traps. Now let's go to step 9th, not absorb the problems of others. Step 9, do not absorb the problems of others. Manipulators love to transfer your responsibilities to you. They make it seem that their problems are yours too, creating a sense of artificial obligation. But the Stoic teach that each one is responsible for their own life. Epictetus said, "Don't carry the burden that belongs to another." This means that as much as you want to help, you should not feel obliged to solve problems that are not yours. A classic example is when a price colleague procrastinates and at the last moment asks for help, saying, "If you don't help me, I'll have serious problems." This creates emotional pressure, making you feel that you need to intervene. But the truth is that his lack of planning is not his responsibility. The best Stoic answer: be empathic, but do not assume the blame. Say, "I understand your situation, but I can't solve it for you." Now let's go to the 10th step. Identify when someone uses silence as manipulation. Step 10. Identify when silence is a form of manipulation. Silence can be a powerful tool, and manipulators know that. They use the famous ice technique, ignoring you on purpose to generate anxiety and force you to give in. However, they teach us that the silence of others should not affect our inner peace. Seneca said, "There is nothing power over the soul unless the soul itself grants it." This means that if someone uses silence as a weapon against you, the problem is in it, not you. A classic example is when someone stops answering your messages after a request or discussion, hoping you feel guilty and turn back. If you fall into this, reinforce the manipulation. But if you keep your position and follow your life normally, this tactic loses the effect. The Stoic solution: accept silence without fear. Your peace cannot depend on the communication of others. Now, let's go to the last step, to own your own decisions. Step 11, be owned by your own decisions. The last line of defense against manipulation is the total autonomy about your choices. If you are not clear about what you want and you believe, other people will make decisions for you. Stoics taught that true freedom is acting according to reason itself and not according to the will of others. Epictetus said, "If you want to be unshakable, never depend on something that is not under your control." This means that to avoid being manipulated, you need to define your own values and principles and follow them, regardless of external pressure. Imagine someone trying to convince you to do something that goes against your principles, saying, "Everyone does that." If you have no conviction, you may end up giving in, but if you have already decided that certain values are non-negotiable, it simply replies, "I don't do that," without discussion, no doubt. The final key to protecting yourself from manipulation: Be firm in your decisions and do not expect external approval. Manipulation is everywhere, at work, relationships, and even in society. But now you have a powerful arsenal of 11 Stoic strategies to protect yourself. Stoicism not only teaches to resist manipulation, but to live with autonomy, clarity, and inner strength. Remember, true power is not in controlling others, but not being controlled. When you dominate your emotions, you question hidden intentions and focus on what you can control. It becomes an unshakable individual. When you learn to say no, avoid justifications, and detect emotional games, it becomes free to act according to your own reason. Stoic philosophy is not about coldness or indifference. It is about living with wisdom and integrity. Applying these principles, you not only protect yourself from manipulation, but it also becomes a stronger, balanced, and confident person. Now tell me, which of these steps do you already apply in your daily life? Write in the comments and share your experience.